Behind me is an image of Kate Webster. You can see it says, boiled her mistress and stole her house. Very sensationalist. So, Kate Webster in 1879 was executed at Wandsworth Prison for killing her mistress, her employer, Mrs. Thomas, with an axe, and then boiling her remains and dismembering her. Now, Kate Webster was originally from Ireland and from a very young age was a juvenile delinquent. She didn't come from a particularly poor family. They weren't wealthy, but they were respectable. But she kept getting into trouble for stealing, and she spent several spells in prison and also for prostitution as well, until eventually she became a maid, a lady's maid to Mrs. Thomas, a wealthy woman living in Richmond in London. And she was sacked because she was drinking on the job and just generally being not very good at her job. But she was very angry at this and wanted to get her revenge on Mrs. Thomas. And that's when she attacked her with an axe, killing her. And then she dismembered the body parts and started boiling them up, burning the bones in the fire. She then proceeded to take Mrs. Thomas's name, started wearing her clothes and selling off and pawning off her jewellery, her belongings, her furniture, etc. In terms of the body parts, what she did with them was dispose of them in a big chest in the river. And that wasn't very clever because they were fished out and found. And also the next door neighbour to Mrs. Thomas, of course, became very suspicious that all the stuff was being sold off and that she hadn't seen Mrs. Thomas for a while. So the police were called. Kate Webster escaped back to Ireland, but of course the police were able to communicate with the police in Ireland. She was brought back here and she was arrested. Now, she vehemently claimed her innocence. She said she hadn't murdered Mrs. Thomas. However, the jury didn't buy that at all. And she did actually confess the day before her execution in Wandsworth Prison in 1879. Behind me, you can see an image, a drawing of her execution at Wandsworth Jail. So she is one of the most despised female villains of the Victorian period, probably due to the nature of the murder, but also the fact that there wasn't much sympathy garnered for her, considering that she was from quite a respectable family and that she'd always been a bit of a delinquent and had been offered opportunities and just squandered them. She did actually have a young son who she often left in the care of friends while she got drunk. So all in all, not a particularly nice woman, it seems.